Hey guys, Pastor Darvin here from Mission Lakewood Church, coming to you with our Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning devotions. And today we're still in First Thessalonians and we're starting in the 5th chapter. And just before this section, if you remember from last time, if you've been keeping up with us in these devotions, Paul was talking about the end times, about Jesus' second return, about when he is coming back at the end of the day of the Lord. And it's not without context. He's writing to this church in Thessalonica. They're really discouraged. They've seen people die, possibly even die for their faith, and they still have questions about what happens after you die, because the Greek faith was so remarkably different than the Christian faith, and they had previously had that Greek faith. And so Paul is trying to really encourage them by telling them about the end times. So it's not just random that he's talking about the end times. No, he's doing it to encourage them so they're not discouraged as they watch people die. Kind of a crazy thought, right? So here's the thing. In the previous section, Paul answered two of the questions about end times, at least to how much he wanted to share about it with these people. He already answered the who, the question of who. He said, the Jesus, the who, that's the big who, he's going to return. The who, the angels are going to be with him, cloud of angels. And the who that's going to remain here on earth in the recreated earth in his second coming to live here forever with him is those who believe in Jesus. Both those who have died, he makes a big point of saying that, and those who are still living. Okay, so he answered the question of who, and then he divulged a little of the question of how. How is that going to happen? Well, Jesus is going to come down from heaven, and those who have already died are going to be resurrected. They're going to come first. They're going to be gathered around Jesus, and then those who believe will be gathered around Jesus too. So he's already discussed a bit of the who and how questions about the end times, and now he's going to address, not answer in detail, but he's going to address the question of when. Isn't this a big question everybody has, right? When will time end? Will Jesus return? And of course, these people had that question too. So as he begins to answer that question of when, that's when we jump into 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, which begins like this. Now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates we do not need to write to you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. So we don't need to write to you. He's saying we don't need to tell you when, because none of us know when. That's the whole point. Jesus can return like a thief in the night. Now, if you think about a thief in the night, I've spent a lot of time in Central America, and no matter where you are, what building you're in, you're really aware that a thief could come in the night in some of these crazy places that I've been in. And if you could plan for exactly when they were going to be there, it'd be really easy. Like, if a thief was like, hey, I'm coming, it's going to be 1:37 a.m., going to break into your house, you could be like, all right, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to go. I got the baseball bat. Come on, bring it on. But the point is that you're not going to be able to plan for exactly when, just like you can't plan for when a thief is going to break into your home, even if you know it's going to happen. So he says he doesn't need to write to them about when, because that's not the point. And then he says, the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Now he's actually borrowing Jesus' exact language. Back in Matthew 24, Jesus, when he was talking about the end times, said, therefore, this is verse 42 of Matthew 24, therefore keep watch, because you do not know what day your Lord will come. Very similar language, right? But understand this. If the owner of the house had known what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. So Paul's almost just giving commentary on what exactly Jesus said in Matthew 24, that Jesus is going to come like a thief in the night. You can't plan for exactly when that's going to happen. Then he says this, verse 3, while people are saying peace and safety. So he just used this motif of a thief, right? Thief in the night, this imagery. And now he moves into this idea of peace and safety. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly. Now, it's hard to see in the English, but this is really pointing to a motif of war. Peace. The peace that you would be talking about in that day was Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. It wasn't that peaceful. It would come on you and it could destroy you at any moment. I mean, Rome was so powerful, and their armies could just suddenly descend on your country and obliterate you. This happened to Israel. Not too many decades after, in 70 AD, this exact thing happened. I mean, when you're talking about war, it can be sudden that you find yourself destroyed without warning. And so he uses this language of war, of Roman war, peace and safety, but destruction will come on them suddenly. And now he moves to his third imagery about the when question of end times. And he says, it's as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. So there's two parts of this. He says, as labor pains on a pregnant woman. You know, the thing about labor pains is that a woman gets pregnant and they wait 9 months, right? I mean, 9 months of waiting. It's a really long time. And then just suddenly the baby starts coming. And it's hours later, right? And that's the thing. It's very painful and it's very immediate after a long period of waiting. That's what Paul's getting at. Jesus is going to return. There's going to be a long period of waiting, but then there's not going to be warning. His return is going to be immediate, right? So he uses these three images to help us understand how we cannot plan for exactly when Jesus is going to return, how it's going to be unexpected. We don't know when it's going to happen, and how there's going to be this long wait, and then it's going to be immediate. You can't miss it. Just like, you know, the thief, you can't expect exactly when they're going to come. Just like a foreign army waging war on you, you can't always expect exactly when they're going to come. And then the third one, just like a woman waits for a long time after she's become pregnant until she finally has that first labor pain. So very unexpected. Then verse 4, he keeps explaining this idea. He says, but you, brothers and sisters, are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are all children of the light and children of the day. We do not belong to the night or to the darkness. Now, darkness and light are obviously a huge biblical motif. He might be pulling from something like Isaiah 9:2, which says, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. One of the things that light does is it reveals truth, right? And so Paul is saying that you guys have truth. Jesus has revealed to you the truth. Just like if you turn the light on in a dark room, suddenly everything is revealed. You can see it for what it truly is. And he's saying, you have that truth, right? You have that light. You shouldn't be surprised. Jesus has revealed to you he's going to come again. So don't be surprised by it. You're not going to know exactly when. You can't plan for exactly when, but you better get prepared because you know the truth. You're people of light. You know the truth, and the truth has revealed that he is coming again. And we read this. So then, let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober. Now, this word asleep, he uses it metaphorically and not metaphorically in this passage, which can be a little confusing. But here, he's using it as a metaphor to say, you know, you're unaware when you're asleep, right? If someone comes into the room suddenly and you're asleep, you're caught off guard. And so he's saying, don't be like those people that are unaware that Jesus is returning, that are going to be completely caught off guard when Jesus returns. Verse 7, for those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk at night. Again, a metaphor here, you know, drunk. Well, what happens? You're impaired. You don't really know what's going on, and your senses are dulled. They're dulled. He's saying, don't have your senses dulled. You got to be alert for when Jesus is going to return. You don't know when exactly, but you now know it's coming. You've got to be alert. You got to be aware. Verse 8, but since we belong to the day, let us be sober. And then this is interesting. He says, putting on faith and love as a breastplate, and the hope of salvation as a helmet. Now this is interesting. You know, if you look at Paul, there's actually 4 different times that Paul kind of takes up this metaphor of different pieces of armor or weaponry, and he uses some of them interchangeably, which is interesting. We like to read a ton into, you know, which way he chooses which one, and that's all interesting. But here, both a helmet and a breastplate are defensive. And this really plays into the entire motif of what he's talking about. You know, if you knew a thief was coming into your house, but you didn't know when, what would you do? Well, you would go on the defensive. What would you do? You might buy some sort of weapon. You might create a fence, a defense, a literal fence around your home to defend your home. You might install a security system. These are all defensive measures. Just like wearing a helmet and a breastplate into battle are defensive measures. That's how you get prepared for a thief. You take defensive measures. And this is similar to what a mother, he said, a pregnant mother would do. You take defensive measures. You just get ready for the baby. You might not know the exact time that the baby's going to come, but you get ready. You've got that defense up. You've baby-proofed the house, and you're ready to go. And that's what he's getting at here. He's like, here's how you get prepared. Here's how you put up the defenses. Here's how you get ready for Jesus' return. How do you get prepared? What is the defense to be ready for that? Well, faith, love, and hope. These are three things Paul constantly comes back to in his writing. Faith, love, hope. Faith, love, hope. This is, if you want to be ready, if you want to be prepared for Jesus' return, be a person of faith and love and hope. Verse 9 then, he says, for God did not appoint us to suffer wrath, meaning we're not one of those people who do not know Jesus, and so we're not going to suffer that wrath of Jesus' return, just like he had said in verse 3. Those other people, they're not going to escape, right? They are going to face a judgment. We will not if we believe in Jesus. Verse 9 again, though. For God did not appoint us to suffer wrath, but to receive salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. So again, he's contrasting those who don't know Christ and how the day of the Lord when Jesus returns is not going to go well for them. It's going to be a day of judgment, where it's going to be a day of salvation for those who do. Verse 10, he died for us. Jesus died for us so that whether we are awake, which would mean currently alive when Jesus returns, whether we're awake or asleep meant, if we were dead when Jesus returned, whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him. Again, he's coming back to the idea of, hey, even if you've passed on before Jesus returns, he's going to resurrect your body. It's going to go well for you if you believed in him. He's going to save you, and you're going to be called out to him in this recreated world. And that's a great encouragement if, like the church in Thessalonica, you've seen some people die, and you're wondering what happens to them, right? Which is why, at the very end of this passage, he says this, therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. And in case you're missing the message that the only reason he's sharing this is encouragement, you can pop back to 4:18 where he said, therefore, encourage one another with these words. So it's all about encouragement. That's why he's bringing this up. So here's the main point of this, okay? Just like Jesus said to his disciples, you don't know when he's going to return. He will return. He will return, but you don't know the when. You don't know the hour, right? You can't plan for exactly when, but you can get prepared. You can get prepared. You can't plan for exactly when Jesus is going to return, but you can get prepared. Now, there's kind of two ways we mess this up then. We can either think we really can plan, right, for exactly when, and we can kind of figure that out somehow, or we can just not get prepared and forget that he's coming back. And Christians make both of those mistakes, and I think we all kind of tend to fall in one of those categories more than the other. So with the first, maybe a few decades, this one was a little more popular, but I know particularly when I first got in ministry, people would come to me with these kind of things that they felt like it was really the end times and they knew the when. And, unfortunately, there's been a Christian history, particularly maybe for the last 150 years, for a few generations now, of people really feeling like they can accurately predict exactly when Jesus is going to come back. One church in the late 1800s, Darby and his followers, he calculated up, when he thought Jesus was going to return based on scripture, he said. And they all went out to this hillside and they said, it's going to happen now. Of course it didn't. How he had a following after that, I'm not sure, because he did. But the point is, don't be one of those people. Don't waste your time. Please. it's crazy to waste your time trying to figure out exactly when Jesus is going to come back. You can't plan for exactly when. It's going to come like a thief in the night. It's going to come like a pregnant woman's labor pains. It's going to come like an army suddenly attacking you out of nowhere without any warning. Don't be one of those people who tries to plan for exactly the moment and day and tries to guess all that. Get away from that stuff. But also, don't be one of those people who forgets that Jesus is going to return, that forgets to get prepared. I mean, really, think about it. And I think this is usually more of the error we make today. So many people are just not, we don't even think about it during our days that, oh, wow, Jesus is going to return to recreate this world and judge the living and the dead, and this is going to happen. No, be prepared. Be a person of faith and love and hope. Be prepared. I mean, really, the challenging question is, if you did know Jesus is going to return in a month, what would change in your life? Because in reality, the answer should be nothing, right? Like, in reality, if we're living in that sense of being prepared, maybe some, like, more minor tangible things in life would change, but hopefully we're witnessing to our faith, and we're living our faith, and we're involved in a church, and we're sacrificing our time and our money and our stuff and all that. You know, we're living a faith that if Jesus returned tomorrow, we'd be proud of it. We'd be able to be like, yeah, I was prepared for you to come back. There's nothing I'm ashamed of, right, that I've been doing over the last couple months. And that's the struggle for a lot of us, isn't it? We kind of, put that out of our mind that he's returning today way too often. So that's the point of the passage, is Jesus is going to return, but don't try to plan for exactly when. Instead, get prepared, because he is coming. Thanks for being here. See you next time.